One of the best things about the World Cup is we get to see a lot of teams that we might not normally see. So today what I'm going to do is talk to you about some of those lesser known teams that I think are going to be quite fun in this World Cup. And to do that I have my wonderful World Cup playstyle guide in front of me on the board. Now there are 32 teams on here, and if you want to get our coverage of the World Cup, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. There's a bell notification below me on the screen, which if you click, all of our videos will drop immediately into your feed as they arrive. And so rather than just arbitrarily deciding the teams that I think are going to be fun in this World Cup, what I decided to do was divide all of the teams into different play styles so we could get a nice cross-section of different interesting sides. And I'm going to pick lesser known sides as well, because you all know how the big sides play, don't you? So to the playstyle guide, I've got 5 different categories here. So high pressing possession, high pressing direct attacks, mid block slow possession, variable press, direct attacks, low block, counter-attacks. I'm going to start with high pressing possession. This is what we expect a lot of elite sides to do. So they want to control the game in both phases. They want to hold the ball and work it into dangerous areas, but when they lose the ball, they're going to press quite high, try and win it back and then regain possession and go from there. So not really surprising to see a lot of the big teams here. So Germany, Spain, Brazil, Netherlands, these are the teams that we're expecting to see there. Denmark and Belgium, always there and thereabouts in terms of dark horses, or at least teams that people think could actually progress further through the tournament. Then we've got 2 teams here that we might not expect from Eastern Europe in Croatia and Serbia. And then we get to Qatar. They're very interesting because they've developed a very high possession style of play, which is a little bit unusual for a lesser known side. And the USA as well, in their octagon, have been trying to play high pressing possession football. And it's worth saying at this point that a lot of teams are going to play in a different way at the World Cup than they have been in their qualifying section. So it's worth keeping that in mind. Some of these teams may find themselves in other pots. But the team I want to talk about here is Serbia, because Serbia are a very fun team. And here they are on the board in front of us. This is Dragan Stojkovic's Serbia. They're playing in a very different way to previous managers. And Stojkovic has done a really good job actually of getting this team playing the best they've played for a very long time. The first thing we should notice about this team is that they play with 2 target men strikers in Dusan Vlahovic and Alexander Mitrovic of Fulham. That already makes them quite fun. And then they've got these 2 exciting wing-backs. So Filip Kostic recently moved to Juventus, just a fantastic crosser of the ball, has a fantastic engine as well. So was originally playing as a wide attacker, but now plays more as a fullback and really brings out the best side in him. So you can expect to see him getting down the line, playing these really nice crosses into the box to these 2 target men, who are both very dangerous. And then we have Andrea Zivkovic, who is a left-footed, right-sided player, so you're going to expect him to be coming inside a little bit more. He's going to be much more of a 1v1 player as well. Tadic, we all know, is a very creative player in behind them as well. And so this is just a really exciting attacking team. What we're going to see them doing is splitting the back 3, having one of their midfielders drop in here to play a little bit more of a build-up role, so gives them a bit of an overload in this area. They're going to play the ball forward into the central midfield area, and then from here Milinkovic-Savic will be looking to find these 2 players in wide areas. And then, as we've said, you've got all these creative players in front areas as well. So that's Serbia. I think they're going to be a little bit better than people are realizing at the moment, but they are in a group with Brazil and then 2 other teams in Switzerland and Cameroon. Their first match is against Brazil, so it could be that they play this really attacking football against Brazil and get smacked and then become a little bit more defensive in the other 2 games. But if they do come up against Switzerland and Cameroon with a little bit more aggression, I think they'll be super fun to watch. So back to our play style board. High pressing, direct attack. So these are teams who are going to press high, try and win the ball back, and they're going to be able to attack at speed as well. So Argentina and Uruguay in this area, although Argentina, you could push into the high pressing possession pot as well. Keep that in mind. Then we've got teams like Senegal and Saudi Arabia in here as well. But I want to talk to you a little bit about Canada, because I think Canada will be a fun side to watch as well. So Canada here on the board in front of me, they are managed by John Herdman, who's an interesting guy. He's had a lot of success with the women's team on the international stage. Now he's moved over to the men's team, and they're currently playing right now in a warm-up for the World Cup, and they're playing this sort of formation here. They're actually playing Junior Hoylett in this game, but that's because Alphonso Davies is recovering from injury, so he will be the player who comes in, and he is really important for them, because actually it's important to remember that Davies plays as a left back for Bayern Munich, his team, but in this team he's become a really dangerous attacking player. He's a really good transitional player. We know that he has the ability to carry the ball. He's a really good dribbler, really pacey player as well, and this will just add to the transitional quality of this side. So Davies will be playing in this sort of area, and he will move inside, and this will create space here then for Sam Adekugbe, who's playing in Turkey at the moment. A really aggressive runner with a really good engine, so that will create space for Davis moving inside for Atakugbe to get into these sorts of areas. We've got Kyle Larin and Jonathan David here as well. David can drift out wide too, but really exciting attacking units here. And over on this side, actually, the other right-sided player, Buchanan, is a bit more of an attacking player as well. So what you're going to see in attack is a lot of aggression in transitional moments, but then they can drop back into this sort of formation when they're out of possession as well. So they're going to be super fun to watch. They've got some exciting players coming through, and this is probably the best Canada team we've seen in a while. And so let's go back to our playstyle board. Here's the middle column, mid-block, slow possession. Guess what? Mid-block, slow possession doesn't sound very fun, and it isn't. So you've got teams here who are going to play really solid football. They're not going to be that progressive. They're going to be largely quite defensive. They're going to hold possession to stop the opposition having the ball, and they're then going to try and win through having better talented players than the opposition. England are here, so let's just remind ourselves of what England like to do in these sorts of situations. So here's England's 3-4-3. What we'll see is the front three getting quite narrow, leaving space for wide players here in Trippier and Shaw, the wing backs. Rice and Bellingham behind, and then a back three just being very, very solid here. And what we've seen from England in recent tournaments is that their possession structures are not that subtle, and what ends up happening is the ball gets horseshoed around the back like this over and over again, and then what they'll try and do is either score from a set piece, or they'll try and make the most of having these really talented players, Kane, Sterling, Foden. We've also got Mason Mount, Bukayo Saka, Jack Grealish, Maddison, all of them can play in these sorts of areas, and the idea then is that you actually just win through moments. But that is the way that you win World Cup sometimes, and France, who are the most recent winners of the World Cup, played in a very similar way. So rely on your talent to try and get through, play very solid football, but not very interesting football. So let's move on to more interesting and exciting things. So the fourth pot here, variable press and direct attack. So this is teams that are going to maybe sit a little bit deeper against better opponents, but they'll press quite high when they have weaker opponents, and they're going to try and win the ball back and then attack directly. So quite similar to this high pressing direct attacks, but these teams will be a little bit more variable in the extent of their pressing. So let's talk a little bit about Ecuador at the top of this group. Here they are on the board. Now the thing to remember about Ecuador is that they play their home games in South America at altitude, and so that means that they have a really good home record. So it's a little bit difficult to actually work out the level that they're at. But what I think is most interesting about Ecuador is that the players that they've got are actually quite fun. They're in a really fun group, which is Group A, that has the Netherlands, it has Qatar in it, and it also has Senegal, who are a lot of people's pick to be the best African team. And so I think a lot of people are sleeping on Ecuador a bit, and I think that because they've got some really fun players. So let's start off with the Premier League players. So we've got Caicedo. Moises Caicedo plays for Brighton, has really impressed this season. A little bit more of a box-to-box player, but I think at this level in the international game, he will really impress in terms of what he can do on the ball. And then we've got Pervis Estupiñán, who's also at Brighton. We've seen what he can do under Roberto De Zerbi. We've also seen what he can do under Graham Potter, but he's a fullback, likes to get forward, aggressive fullback, so he'll get into these sorts of advanced areas. And then we've just got some really exciting ball players. So Piero Hincapié of Bayer Leverkusen is just a really good passer of the ball. So Hincapié can spray the ball into these wide areas, straight to the wingers. But then the other thing we might see also is these passes being played into the wingers who are dropping in, and this creates space for the fullback to get into, so the ball can go to Valencia. Valencia can find Estupiñán and he can get the ball forward. There's also another name we should mention, Gonzalo Plata here, who's playing for Valladolid at the moment in Spain. He's a really exciting winger, and I think he could be one of the breakout stars of the tournament. People will see him and recognise that he's a fun player to watch. So there's Ecuador. They're going to be a little bit more fun, maybe less so tactically, but more so in terms of the players that they've got. Back to our playstyle guide for the last time, the last pot here, low block and counter-attack. Sounds awful, doesn't it? But actually, there are teams who can play quite exciting football that way, and that is where Iran come into it. So let's just take a look at them. Iran are in the same group as England, so this is good prep for England fans watching this. But the thing to notice about Iran, I think, is that they have quite an exciting forward line. Saad Azmoun playing in Leverkusen, Yakanbash playing in the Eredivisie, and then Mehdi Taremi, who is probably the best number 9 in Europe that no one knows is the best number 9 in Europe, if that's a category that makes any kind of sense. So yes, Iran are going to sit deep. They have a manager in Carlos Queiroz, who we know is just going to be a super patient manager. He's going to get his team sitting deep, absorbing pressure, and then winning the ball back. But when they win the ball back, they're going to get the ball forward quickly into these 3 players who are just really exciting, and they are going to find ways to cause problems in transition for oppositions, and that can be quite fun. Last World Cup, Iran were very close to making it through the group stages, and this time they have a good chance of getting through Group B, which has England, Wales, and the USA in it too. So there you have it. There are some of the lesser known, interesting teams teams that I think will be quite fun in this World Cup. If you have any other suggestions, do get in touch in the comments, and do make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we're going to have loads of content coming out over the next few weeks.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is where the Ralph Rangnick to Manchester United story broke, where a team of journalists have provided unrivaled coverage of Newcastle United's new ownership, and where dedicated writers cover every Premier League team no matter their place in the table. And you can try it free now for 30 days.